Hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the Momsplanation. We're back.
We are. Did you miss us?
I missed us.
I did, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's been such a long summer.
Summer's almost, 1 week left.
I know. It's really sad. I was talking to my kids about it, and my son is very, very sad about the fact that summer's over and he has to go back to school.
Bye.
He's like, are you sure I have to go? I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that you're going. But yes, so we're back. We recorded this episode 2 months ago, which is really crazy because I feel like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So we recorded it 2 months ago. It's a great episode that I wish we had released sooner because it's just that good. But we've been on summer hiatus. Unplanned summer hiatus, but it was much needed, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of things happening.
Mm-hmm.
So this episode is about a mother and a son.
Yeah, so near and dear to my heart. I've known Sean since I was in grade 8, and I won't tell you how long ago that was, because I'm like 24, obviously.
It was 40 years ago.
Yeah, and just, it's so touching, and to get a mother's perspective is just amazing. You just have to listen to the episode. Like, I don't want to give it away. Yeah. Just listen to this episode. Tissues are needed, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, my heart.
Yeah.
But
it's amazing what a mother's love, what lengths you'll go to for your children, even when they're adults.
That's right.
You think that, I mean, I know a lot of people feel like, you know, once your children are grown, the mothering sort of lessens or stops.
Yeah, no.
But the truth is sometimes things happen and, you know, a mother's love and commitment is unwavering. Yep. And Lois, Sean's mother, really exemplifies that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, guys. That starts with a not beautiful story. Yeah. But it's a great listen, and that's the doorbell because we're recording another episode. So please listen to the episode, guys, and we hope you enjoy it. And lastly, Sean is actually a musical artist, so take a peek at our website for links to his music. It's really great stuff. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
You're listening to the Momsplanation. Real life, real moms, real talk.
Hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the Momsplanation podcast. Today we have some awesome guests with us, Lois and her son Sean. Mm-hmm. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
Here. How are you today?
Go ahead.
I'm great.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm really good.
Are you guys are podcast first timers, right?
Yes.
We are.
Yeah,
Podcast virgins.
Here we go. Red light
PVs.
like you just said. Welcome. It's the best way to start. So, Sean is actually a friend of Emily's.
That's right, yeah. Right? We have known each other since, I think you came to St. John's in grade 7?
7, yes.
7, yeah. So I've known him since grade 7. Crazy.
I don't even want to say how old that is because I'll feel so old right now.
No, we're 20-something?
Yeah, exactly.
It was 12 years ago. It's really not that long.
Yeah, and we've just kept in touch over social media, Facebook, Instagram. I think that's how everybody keeps in touch with high school people. We haven't actually seen each other since high school.
I know, it's like a reunion.
Here we are.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we wanted to reconnect to talk to you guys about, well, like life and motherhood and relationships between mother and son, but also because you guys have gone through a significant event in your relationship and in your life, Sean.
Yes.
Right? So why don't you talk about what happened to you?
Oh, well.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Dive right in.
I guess, it was, just over 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, May. I guess you could say I suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
Yeah, due to having been assaulted. Okay. And now it's a long sort of story as to what happened that whole night, and I can't exactly say from my memory because there's a big gap of time from that injury that I don't remember. Maybe what would you say 3 or 4 months of my life?
Wow.
Yep.
Like beforehand?
No, from the moment of the injury.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially what was happening that night, I was out for my birthday.
Okay.
It was just a few days after my birthday, and we went out to a club, a bunch of people, we had the whole VIP booth and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
I guess whatever, I wanted to celebrate big because I was doing some big things in my fitness, in my boxing, I don't want to call it a career. It was a side thing I was doing as I was a competitive fighter.
And what kind of fighting were you doing?
Just boxing.
Okay,
yeah, amateur boxing
With
though.
Mike.
Yes.
Who was my neighbor.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
yes, Mike Primetime Post.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. He was my coach, and very great guy. And you know what? I learned a lot doing that, and it's just I started to get really into my health and fitness with that, which was amazing because going into that I was a wreck. I was very much into the party lifestyle. I was that I think a lot of 20-year-olds get into.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Some more than others.
Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
On that front.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was just I wanted to really celebrate big, and I did this huge thing because I had just won the Ontario Golden Gloves tournament.
Amazing.
And and we just went out that night, and from what I was told now, this is now again a retelling of the experience and what happened, but I remember the whole night. I remember being in the club. I remember having fun, dancing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember from the time I walked out of the club.
Okay.
I remember walking through the club to get to the doors
Okay.
of leaving. It was at the end of the night, 2:30 in the morning, whatever it was. But as soon as I hit those doors, I don't remember anything.
Okay.
The incident didn't happen there, but what had happened was the group of people that was left over, there was 5 of us. The 3 guys we had disbanded.
Yes.
From my sister and my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So ex-girlfriend. They went to go get the car in the parking lot.
Okay.
What had happened with the 3 guys, me and 2 other guys, we lost each other somehow. Me and the one guy made it to the car.
Yeah.
And there was one other guy who was off. We just said, okay, where is he? We saw. I was like, okay, I'll go get him.
Okay.
I basically went to go get him, and a big sort of... I walked into this big sort of, red hot war zone that I didn't know I was walking into.
Okay. That your friend was involved in?
Yes.
Okay.
And now, apparently, what has been told to me is that he was offering me up for a fight and boosting me up because I don't know what was happening. Something was happening with him and these other guys.
Okay.
And he was basically saying that I was going to come kick their ass because I was a professionally trained boxer who just won the Golden Gloves and this and that.
Okay, yeah.
So I walked into something I didn't know I was walking into. First of all, I didn't use my ability to fight outside of boxing.
Right.
I kept that in the ring, and that's where I left it.
Yeah.
So the fact that he would offer me up for something like this, I don't know why.
Right.
But yeah, so when I walked over there, I asked him, what are you doing? Is there a problem?
Yeah.
The guys that,
He was having the altercation with?
one of them ripped their shirt off, apparently ran over, you want there to be a fucking problem, and this and that, got in my face and stuff, and like, I didn't walk away, mind you. I probably should have.
Yeah.
But whatever. Drunkenness, I'm sure, kept me
of course.
there.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I, at no point, was ever trying to engage in a fight with this guy, from what I was told.
Yeah.
But I didn't walk away. But regardless, when I went to turn away was apparently when he cheap-shotted me, and I got sent to the ground. My head just smashed right off the pavement.
Okay.
At this point, that knocked me right out.
Right.
And, being my sister was there and everything, too. I can only imagine what she was thinking at that time.
Yeah.
It's almost 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Her brother is now lying on the floor with blood dripping out of his ear. He's unconscious.
Yeah.
Or I'm unconscious. And she's now got to try and figure out, okay, what the heck I got to do? I got to contact my mom. I got to, there's got to be police need to be called and this and that. And,
Right.
So basically that's the story of the incident itself.
Yeah.
Going forward after that incident, that's something I don't fully recall much of in my recovery initially.
Yeah. What's the first memory you have after that time? Are you in the hospital? Are you at
I'm in the
home,
recovery hospital.
Okay.
The rehab.
The rehab hospital.
Okay.
My first memory from the rehab hospital, it sounds very cliche because I'm a musician.
Yeah.
But honestly is 2 artists.
Okay.
Jim Brickman, he's a pianist.
Okay.
Listening to his CD.
Okay.
And especially one song called Winter Morning.
Right.
I still listen to that song today. I don't know if it's just a memory, bring
Yep.
back amazing memories of just finally remembering stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But then also Bon Jovi.
Awesome.
The song, though, that really, really rings in my mind and heart, I would even say, is called One Step Closer.
Oh, yeah. I know that song. Yeah.
I listened to that song I don't know how many times, probably in the rehab hospital or even going throughout my recovery after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those are the first two memories of that.
So Lois, what was your recollection of that moment in time?
That night, actually, I was up in Brampton. A friend of mine, just a few months before this incident, my mother had passed.
Okay.
And then my dear friend that I've known since I was 5, our mothers were great friends. Her mother passed a month after my mother.
Oh my gosh.
And so they were having a big celebration of her life
Nice.
at that point in time. And I went up to it in Brampton. And this was a Saturday night.
Okay.
And I was going to stay there, but I was a workaholic at the time. Okay.
No.
And I had brought home work that I needed to do on Sunday. My fear was that if I stayed there, I wouldn't get up early enough to start my work and get it done.
Okay.
So I said, no, I'll have to get up at 6 a.m. I'll disturb everybody in the hotel. I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm just going to go home. I wasn't home 20 minutes before my phone rang.
Okay.
And this was about 2:40 in the morning.
Okay.
And as soon as my phone rang, I knew something was wrong. And it's the phone call that every parent dreads.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And Sean mentioned his sister was there, and she had not taken her cell phone with her because she had a little tiny purse.
Of course.
Right? No room for a phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fashion
Lipstick.
before function.
Lipstick and stuff for sure, but no phone. Yeah.
So when I looked at my phone, the name was one of Sean's friends, and I thought, why is he calling me? Well, she had borrowed his cell phone.
Right.
And I answered it, and there was just a wailing on the other end of the phone.
Oh my God.
And instantly I thought something was wrong with her.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get her to answer me. I couldn't get it. What's the matter? Are you okay? Are you safe? Are you hurt? Like all those questions, right? And then finally she calmed down enough to tell me that Sean had been injured.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, did somebody call 911?
Yeah.
Like she said, I think he's dead.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
Oh my God.
10 years later, I still remember that feeling.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. But then the sort of person that does all the to-do list, the organizer in me kicked in because I couldn't deal with the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you push it aside.
Yeah.
And you go, what do I have to do?
Yeah.
So I got my other phone and I called 911.
Yeah.
And they told me there was already an ambulance on the way.
Okay.
And I said to my daughter, I said, are you alone? And she said, everybody's gone. Everybody took off.
Except for her and Sean?
And Sean. And it's like, and his ex-girlfriend at the time. And I said, but these guys that did this are still there? You don't know where they are? And she said, no. And I said, then you're staying on the phone with me.
That's right.
Because you need to be safe.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
You're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
She didn't have her driver's license at the time. And I remember Sean's, at the time, the girl that was with him went in the ambulance. And I said, you can't stay there alone.
Yeah.
And so a police officer actually was taking her to the hospital, but he needed to interview her. So I knew she was safe.
Yeah.
But it was like, I was torn. I didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
Do I go with my daughter or do I go with my son?
Right.
Because they
Yeah.
were in two
Two
different
different
locations,
spots. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's a decision that you never want to have to make.
Never.
But I thought, okay, she's not hurt and she's safe with a police officer who's
Right.
going to take her to the hospital.
Yeah.
So then I found out from the 911 operator which hospital they were taking him to, which was
Okay.
the Oakville Hospital.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll meet him there.
Yeah.
And then I got off the phone and I thought, I can't drive. I'm too
Right.
upset.
Yeah.
And I phoned my brother,
Okay.
who lived in Midland,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
at 3 o'clock in the morning to say, calm me down.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know was his wife was away for the weekend, my sister-in-law,
Yeah.
and he thought something happened to her.
Oh my God.
It just set this
Yeah.
like a snowball of panic just coming down.
It was a snowball. Exactly. That's exactly the best way to describe it. A snowball of panic was set in motion. He talked me down.
Yeah.
And I got to the hospital. Yeah. And they told me he was alive, but they had no neurosurgeon in Oakville. Yeah. And the doctor that examined him actually told me what the injury was. They call it a counter-coup injury. What happens is your brain basically is like jello, and it smashes against your skull and goes back and forth. Right. Because when he hit the ground, the skull hit the back and then hit the other part and then hit the back. So they call it a counter-coup.
Okay.
So basically his brain was bleeding and it was bruised and bleeding.
Injured. Yes.
And so they said, we're going to have to get him to a neurosurgeon. Right. And there wasn't any, they called all the hospitals in surrounding, and there wasn't a hospital in Ontario that could see him. Come on. And they were going to airlift him to Buffalo. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have a valid passport. I can't even go with him. So all this is going through my mind at the time. Fortunately, there was a doctor in Toronto Western who called up and said, send him down. I'll take a look at him. Probably nothing. We'll send him back, right?
He wishes he didn't do that.
He performed 12 surgeries 11 surgeries on him.
Oh my
God. But yeah, so that night then he was taken by ambulance to the Toronto Western Hospital to see the neurosurgeon there.
And you were able to stay with him during this time? Or
no? They wouldn't let me go in the ambulance. I had to drive there.
Yeah.
So I had to drive there.
I don't understand why they do that. I will never understand that. When your child, I don't care how old they are going in an ambulance, why can't...
Well, and you probably don't want me on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in no condition to be driving to Toronto.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When because they let his, at the time, going from the incident location to the hospital, they let somebody go with him. So why can't I go with him when you transfer him?
Yeah, it doesn't make any
it's really
sense.
Frustrating. But you're not thinking at the time to object to it. You're just trying to
it's all going
survive.
Through the motions.
Really, you're just okay. Yep. And but that night, I remember. There were many times they put Sean in an induced coma. Because the movement would create more swelling in the brain. Right. Yeah. And they put him in the induced coma, and the neurosurgeon probably came out, I think, 3 times over the course of the next several hours. And while we were in the waiting room, and he just said to me, he said, I don't think he's going to make it.
Really?
And I remember thinking, that can't be possible.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours ago, I was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he came out and he goes, well, I think he might be okay. Oh, phew.
I think I got it.
And then he came out and he goes, it's going downhill. He might not make it. And then I remember after he did that about the 3rd time, it was just, I just dropped to my knees in the waiting room, and I probably let out this animalistic sound that I thought, I can't take this roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah.
Like, the next time you come out, tell me he's dead or he's going to be fine, but don't do this to me. Like, I can't handle this. And then I just basically lived at the hospital for the next week. They ultimately had to take his skull off, a bifrontal craniectomy.
Okay.
To allow his brain to swell.
Okay.
Because his right eye was going to pop, is what they said. It was going to blow his right eye. And also when the brain hits the skull, it dies.
Okay.
So there was a lot of, like, a brain injury is permanent.
Yes.
Right? It's permanent death to that part of the brain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so they wanted to allow his brain to expand without hitting the skull to kill it.
Right.
And I guess, so, and then you were just basically sent back to Oakville shortly, at which you probably don't remember, waiting for the rehab hospital about a week later. But he was injured on May the 3rd.
Yeah.
And the week after that,
he was still in the Toronto Western Hospital, and that was Mother's Day.
Right.
yeah.
And his short-term memory, he could remember everything up to the incident.
Yeah.
So his long-term memory was never affected,
Yeah.
but the short-term memory was.
Yeah.
But at one point, he wished me a happy Mother's Day probably about 15 times that day because he couldn't remember he'd told me. And I thought, that was good.
So he was awake. He was awake, like fairly
they
shortly
had
after?
they had him in an induced coma for 3 days.
Okay.
But
the
no, he still had his skull at that
Okay,
point. They
okay.
were sorry, I'm not explaining
No,
it
that's
very well.
okay. That's why I'm asking. 'Cause it's
They were trying to avoid having to remove his skull
right.
by slowing down the swelling of the brain,
Right.
by putting him in the induced coma so he would have no activity.
Right. Okay.
However, what happens is when you put someone in an induced coma, your breathing slows down. And so
Right.
they have to put a breathing tube in,
Yep.
right?
Sorry, I'm laughing already.
He pulled
'cause
it
I know.
out. He pulled it out. He didn't want it there.
Yeah.
In an induced
So-
coma, I pulled the
yeah.
breathing tube out several
Yeah.
times.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yes.
So they put it back down and they tied his hands to the
Right.
side of the bed.
Right.
He pulled it out with his knees.
Oh my God.
He lifted his knees up and he pulled it out with his
on.
knees. I
Oh my
know.
God. Wow.
Yeah.
He's a Taurus. He's stubborn.
Crazy. A Taurus and an athlete. Like,
Right?
Just.
I got this.
I got this.